This is AI Governance with Dr. Freddie Seba, a podcast and practical guide to AI oversight for boards and executive leadership.
Welcome to another episode of AI Governance with Freddie. Um, this is a conversations with people at the front in the learning and experiencing and installing and questioning and interrogating AI. And the thinking is that we want to learn from them. As you know, I do share a newsletter with a lot of research and articles, what have you. This is to put you in front of people who are wondering and who are working on it and see and have a lot to share. So again, we're going to try to be bold, want to make it impactful, and we're going to talk in plain language. So you don't need a computer science or a data science degree to engage with us. So we are very lucky to have as a guest here Omar Nasser. He is currently a growth and go-to-market engineer in Inkeep, and I'm going to let him talk about it. And the thinking is, he is engaged in what we call AI agents explain in plain language. What are the things that you as leaders want to know and you want to ask before you adopt, before you engage? And as you know, we're going to share this, and his contact information is there. So I encourage you to reach out and to connect with him directly. Um, and with that as a intro, welcome Omar. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Hello, Freddie. It's been a long time, honestly. I remember we went back in the days in 2022, 2023 when you worked at the BBVA. So it's a real honor to speak to you again a few years later.
Thank you,
Um,
thank you, thank
yeah,
you, thank you so much, and thank you for taking the time. I know you're very busy, especially at the front. And for those of you who are not too familiar with Omar, the good thing about him is very bright, and he's been in both sides. He's been a VC himself, working for an accelerator, doing a lot of research, and then he transitioned into being an operator with his own startup, and now he's leading the charge on a very nicely funded, I believe $13 million or no,
yeah.
or what have you, and with very bright people working with him, MIT people. So it's amazing. So I let him basically tell us first, why would people want to listen to this podcast? So what's so important and valuable? And then we can talk about your company, and we want to talk more about your background. So again,
Sounds good.
why would they listen?
Why would they listen? Mostly because I would say the traditional uh the traditional model's changing, especially when it comes to the enterprise. We're at a phase today where the McKinseys of the world might evolve into becoming an API or an MCP at some point. And the tech companies of the world are becoming more like McKinsey's in the sense where they're hiring what we call as forward deployed engineers who go off and become consultants for those companies. So traditional models in the consulting space is changing. Tech companies are becoming more like consulting companies. Consulting companies are becoming more like tech companies. It's all becoming more blended over time. And I think it's a very exciting time right now with models really, really getting good at doing very complex tasks and empowering people to do stuff that previously they couldn't do through, for example, agentic coding with tools like Cursor and Cloud Code. Like Freddie, you might remember me from a few years ago. I was just simply doing research. I was a good writer, I think. Now I could take my writing skills to go and prompt and write with an AI to go build an application. I would not have dreamed of that 3 years ago. The world has changed. And I think within that change, there's a good reason to listen to those who work in the space and those who are especially working with enterprise leaders where those enterprise leaders are perhaps at the frontier of the changes. And those are typically, I would say, more on the agentic coding side, but also on the customer support side, where we see a lot of applications today. And I believe this year, because of what the moves that like OpenAI and Anthropic are doing, we'll probably see it go into areas like finance and having those fields impact. So that's why I think people should pay attention this year now, especially now. Um, it's never too late. And I guess that might be the answer to your question, unless you want me to go in a different angle.
Thank you. Thank you. So, before we go deeper on the company, so just tell us what an agent is. I mean, we have audience with all kind of technical expertise and what have
Yeah.
you. What is an agent? I mean, if you want to boil it down to something
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah, that's a great question because I actually struggled with that question just as soon as like just 6 months ago. I was like trying to really figure out what an agent is. Because you would think like an agent's interface is different than like let's say a chat GPT, for example. But they sometimes have the same interface.
Mm.
So what an agent is in simple terms is it's an LLM equipped with a tool, put into an infinite loop, so a loop, until it gets a certain task done. And that loop can be continuous and never end. Um, so essentially, you combine reasoning with an LLM, tools like a business application, like scheduling software, like your Google Calendar, and you combine that in an infinite loop to get a specific bit of tasks done. You end up with something called an agent that goes off and works for you, essentially, on your computer
So
or on
that,
the cloud.
thank you. So that sounds like a great way to summarize, and I do appreciate you making it very plain English, very simple. So w- it seems like there's a lot of advantages just to think about that, but what are the risks? I mean, if you are a board member, if you are a trustee, and if you are a leader, what are the risks? What things you should be thinking about? And then tell me how your company works.
Yeah, great question. So, from a very high level, how would a company think about agents? And it really comes down to economies of scale and the fundamental constant force of creative destruction throughout the history of technology. Um, you essentially what I think board directors should be doing in plain simple terms is how can we leverage this technology to essentially remain competitive or to expand our bottom line, especially as upstarts are coming up in the space. So it's really from a position of um, defensiveness, but also expansion, but also perhaps being able to remain competitive and making sure this company that you have fiduciary duty to can compete in the next 10 years.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So tell us about your company. I mean, I was looking at it and I saw tons of use cases where you guys are applying that, they're using it. This is not
Hmm.
a concept, it's not a prototype. There are companies out there.
Yeah.
I saw the rosters of partners. And I looked at your privacy and all of that. So do you want to tell us more about your company, what they do, why somebody should engage with somebody like you?
Yeah, for sure. So why somebody should engage with us, why an enterprise should engage with us. That's one part of the question, but I'll also start with perhaps what we do just to maybe start there. So we essentially, our company is called Inkeep. Funny enough, the word comes from, like the name of the company comes from the word in keeping with. I didn't learn about that until like earlier today, but you learn new things every day. But essentially, what we do is we provide agentic AI, what I was telling you about earlier, where you combine LLMs, tools, and tasks for customer operations teams at enterprise companies, specifically B2B enterprise software companies today that are highly technical. So we work with companies like Anthropic, Midjourney, Postman, Pinecone, Solana, a few Fortune 500s I cannot name, but
Mhm.
essentially companies that are highly technical, that have a highly technical customer base where reliance and trust on the answer is of prominence. So they need to be able to provide highly reliable AI generated answers. And we do that very well. Actually, this is one of our competitive advantages that no other company or very few companies could actually do. Um, and where they, at the same time, on top of just providing reliable answers, they want to be able to uh, have some sort of an agentic or an LLM autonomously go off and do backend systems with their tools, so that they don't necessarily always loop in a human in the loop, or a human to like review something that is super repetitive, and super easy to do. Um, and in cases where it is hard to do and you require a human, Inkeep also provides AI tooling for uh, for the customer support representative, the agents that work in the company, the human agents, so that they can get tasks done faster. So we enable both the humans, and we enable companies to scale where it makes more sense to have agents, LLM agents, take care of things.
Thank you. Great explanation. So two questions, two follow-on questions. One is why your company, right? I'm sure there are a lot of
Mhm.
competitors out there. And the second one is kind of related. Why wouldn't I build it if you, as you started, you saying this is very simple to do, which in the past we never thought about it, right? It's what I keep saying, uh, GPT just escaped the LLM, escaped the lab, so now everybody can work on it. So why bring in somebody like you, and why you as opposed to one of your competitors?
Yeah, there's a lot of good questions. That's actually a very good question. We hear that often. Why us? Why would, for example, Anthropic, which is one of the leading, if one of the leading, it's not the most frontier of all the labs out there today, use us? Um, Great question. And it's the simple answer is resources are constrained.
Okay.
We provide something that where they don't have to necessarily invest time in to like use their engineers to build something that is very bespoke to them. We do it for them essentially already, um, and they can use their engineers to go and compete with OpenAI. That's perhaps one way to look about it. We essentially help them move faster. The second reason is when we've seen when companies build their own, there's a maintenance aspect, which is also similar to what I was telling you earlier now. That maintenance is burdensome over time. So because it's burdensome, it's going to cost you resources. And then finally, we have some expertise here in terms of being able to guarantee a high degree of reliability with the answers that frankly very few can. We, like I said earlier, or like you said earlier, uh, our engineers from MIT, they're very smart. They have some technical moat here that not many people have. So that's why they would want to rely on us to begin with, because we can provide trust as the foundation. We are a very trustworthy platform when we give an answer, and we cite our answers, and we have traces where you could see the traces of how the LLM thought. So companies can even improve it over time if they wanted to, and we do provide that user interface that is super simple to improve things. So that is the foundation. Now, why would they want to come to us and perhaps go from just using us as a simple chat assistant on their website to answer questions to something even more like an agent, using us as an agent to get work done, essentially, with the backing of their humans that already work there as well. Um, the reason why is because Inkeep, on top of just being a very reliable chatbot, is also a platform where we are able to give companies a very developer friendly software development kit or an SDK. Um, all the necessary primitives of modern agents that not many companies are keeping up with, but we do, like MCPs and skills, um, and obviously we have RAG as well, which on top of that. Um, so why would they want to come with us? Is because when they implement a chatbot that answers reliable questions, they can also build on top of it, connect to their systems internally, and we make that super simple. So we become this platform where you rely on us to interconnect all your different systems together so that agents can then talk and work across those different systems. You can literally design your own your own AI employee that way to get work
Excellent.
done. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for that explanation. So you're touching on the governance and ethics side. You're touching key things. One is you're talking about RAG. So you're saying, look, some of the issues that people have, leaders have, and all of us as users is, the inaccuracy, the hallucinations, whatever it's called these days. So it seems like you guys have figured out how to increase um, accuracy in the models, whether with a RAG or somewhere else. The other thing
Yes.
that caught my attention is as I do research in your company, I see that you guys don't use your users' data to train models. which
Never.
that's fascinating. So can you elaborate on that, which is a big issue for governance and ethics?
Yeah. So we want to work with the best companies out there. The best companies out there essentially have these strict requirements. These companies that I'm talking about with the best are typically S&P 500. Um, they have highly sensitive customer data. They don't want necessarily to have the raw inputs into the customer when their own customer puts in sensitive information about their selves, like their financials or whatever. We don't want that exposed to the model providers. So we have a lot of different guardrails like PII to ensure that this doesn't happen. It is extremely important for us to implement this because we want to go out there and work with the best people. So that is one way that we do it. We make sure everything is anonymized, and that nothing ends up being trainable by the LLMs. And on top of that, I would also say that um, our authentication and permissioning is pretty good. So in the sense that because different enterprises, and you've worked at one like BBVA, for example, because they have all these different um, levels to which they can give access to information to different users, and their employees specifically, they need to be able to be able to segregate between that. So, and we provide that so that we're able to respect the hierarchies of information that they have. Lastly, like I was saying to you earlier, our tool is also very, very much like transparency driven. So all the reasoning in the LLMs that happen on our agents, they're all traceable. They're all you can monitor them. You could see them as audits. So if the LLM by any chance decided to say something really weird, you can know why. So that is probably one of the reasons why they use us. And we do we do think that being able to securely build trust through confidence, or securely to be able to build confidence through trust is one of the key pillars for us.
Excellent. So that basically in that sense, that's awesome. The fact that, as we all know, one of the issues with LLMs is the fact that it's hard to audit. So especially in highly regulated industries,
Yeah,
not knowing how a decision was made creates a lot of issues with regulators. So it seems like you guys have figured out the way to do it, and you can go back and audit that, or to the extent that something, model, misalignment or drift happens, there is a way to go back and figure that one. Um, is that something that you see is very important, especially at the senior level in board level?
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's extremely important because they need to be able, everything needs to be traced at the end of the day. Everything.
So again, it seems like you guys have basically figured out some of the key things that you keep hearing boards and leaders talk about. How, I mean, all the cons against using LLM, especially uh, AI agents, because they're gonna make decisions,
Yes.
whether to transfer money, whether to let people in or out. It's not all about showing you, oh, you should be doing that. It's about making that decision. So, how do you address the human in the loop aspect? So, how, as a whether I have a workflow that I want to make sure that whether it's a hospital having physicians, whether it's as you mentioned, a bank that wanted to have an officer looking at it. So how do you navigate that human in the loop aspect where you might not want to outsource, if you will, a decision, or you want to make sure that there is a human there because
Yeah.
you're going to touch people's lives?
Yeah, fantastic question. And thank you for asking that because, uh, again, it's one of those things that people at enterprises always ask. Um, so essentially, uh, this might be maybe just talk a little bit about how Inkeep works from an architectural perspective. We are a multi-agent framework. So what that means is we don't have one single agent working at the same time. We have multiple agents working together. And different agents have different roles. that specialize in different tasks, and they specialize in accessing different tools. So essentially, what that means is when we always advise our customers when they use our product to use a confidence agent, for example, that is always programmed at the end of the step to essentially review the outputs of the other agents and then provide a confidence score as to whether we can even execute and finish this task without a human or with a human. We also within our RAG itself, it's what we are one of the few that can say we don't know the answer here. So in that sense, when Inkeep is not confident, we always escalate to a human. So we always have these confidence guardrails essentially to make sure that the final answer or the final task that is about to be complete by the AI is confidence gated. And you always have to confidence gate. Now, I think maybe in 2 years that might not be the case anymore. This is just my personal opinion, not necessarily Inkeep's, because I think the models in December of 2025 crossed a certain threshold where they're so smart right now. I honestly don't think I'm happy to trust them on a lot of things, personally speaking, at least. But that being said, enterprises can't, and confidence gating is one of the ways that we address that.
Great. So thank you again. That addresses some of the issues that we keep hearing out there. So you're using adversarial models to basically have AI check on other AIs and providing a score that either an AI can tell them go ahead or a human can be looped in and say, hey, this we have an issue here or this is the score. We need your basically, let's say it's a diagnostic, let's say there is somebody again in a hospital or somebody trying to, get a return approved that, move above some threshold. So that's amazing that we have you have enabled partnership with the machine, but also having a human in the loop, and where the client gets to choose where do I want my people involved and where not. Where would I trust, as you mentioned, the machine to make those decisions, and whether I really, really want to have a human being making those decisions. Awesome. So with that, it seems like you guys have put a lot of thinking around that. So, what use cases do you see out there? What do you think leaders and boards should be thinking about it when they look at their enterprise? This is an area that, yes, I want to not only go LLM, but I want to go full blown with agents and
Mhm.
or a mix of agents and to make sure that it works. So, where are the areas that make sense at this stage, and which one would you say, well, this type of workflow better to do it in the future where the technology is there?
Yeah, great question. So every enterprise is different.
Mhm.
They have different industries. From what we're seeing, at least, the areas where AI is perhaps more confident is in terms of internal tooling to enable employees to get work done faster. And Inkeep does that for customer support representatives today, for example. So on top of just being a customer-facing tool, we're also an internal tool that enables the representative internally when the human in the loop has to come in. We enable them with AI to get that task done faster as well. So in any case, all that's to say is that enabling your internal humans is probably one of the first things to think about. Um, the second thing to think about is once we've enabled these our internal people and we are able to get more done, where can we you start using them for better purposes, for better outputs of the enterprise? And we find that answering frequently asked questions, for example, is an area where you start off with that. Um, but when it gets to a little more technical, at least, when the answer requires a human in the loop, you still have to enable those humans and you have to give them those tools. So customer support is a killer use case today for AI, and is probably one of those that's going to continue to grow. Internal tooling comes right after that. And then if you're a tech company, internal tooling for your software developers to build or quote unquote vibe code applications is also another avenue. Um, I really think, however, that the best tools for a the best ways that how a board member could be thinking about this thing is how can we make sure that our VPs and our directors who oversee these different teams are equipped also with the right change management tooling to enable this tools to come out. When I speak to VPs, they tell me change management is super important. This is an area where there's a lot of struggle in today. So can there be maybe, for example, executive coaching that could be provided there?
Mm.
That's an area that LLMs aren't going to replace anytime soon. But if you use a human to as an executive coach to coach your people, your decision makers, to get better tasks, to get better work done as they change manage, as they handle those management, the changes here, maybe the downstream impacts are going to be even more significant than just a single LLM tool rolled out once. Um, so I would say internal tooling, customer support, and enabling change management at the higher level.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So let's talk about change management, which is something that I have in my list here. So there is a lot of concerns about, is AI taking my job, and why would I engage with it if I'm a frontline employee? Um, so you kind of touch on better training, getting buy-in from the top. Um, is that I mean, the issues that need the most attention? Is it integration important? Is it capital important? I mean, which pieces are the ones that you think have the most lift when you guys are engaging with boards and leadership?
Mm, say that question differently. It's like,
So change management is a big one. If I'm,
mhm.
somebody working, let's say in a call center,
Yeah,
I'll say, oh, why would I work with this if it's gonna de-intermediate? And you're talking about, um, the way you guys think about it. This is to make people who already hold those jobs more efficient.
effective.
So it
Yes.
seems like that's the way you guys are thinking about it. You
Yeah.
also mentioned about training is important so they feel more comfortable with the tools, so they can embrace it and being able to do more with less and being able to grow. We all need to grow. Um, so that it seems like you guys are heading in the right direction. How about integration? Is that creates a lot of issues. So if I'm a board and we're allocating some capital or overseeing some new deployments, is that a big issue these days with some of the solutions, your solutions and your competitor solution? How do
So
I go about
integration in terms
integrating?
of with their existing tools or
Yeah,
integration
yeah.
with their people, or is it both?
Both culture, people, tools, especially in healthcare. I mean, one of those
Yeah.
systems takes forever to get integrated into workflows. Not the right people are in the room. Maybe it becomes a technical conversation with clinicians should be there, or with bankers. Most industry,
Hmm.
especially with the highly regulated higher education, to where basically somebody state making a decision of what tool to embrace, and the faculty is not involved in those conversations, or students are not. So how do you think about it?
Yeah, great question. It's such a tough question actually because
Good.
uh,
I'm glad.
on one on one hand, if I was a director or a VP at this point, the change management that I would like is to make sure that I have the right people underneath me. And to me, the right people underneath me would be those that are high agency. What I mean by high agency is those that are highly motivated, highly willing to get work done, mostly because they accept reality as to where the world is going, unfortunately,
Mhm.
and choose to act on it by learning the right skills. Um, I really think that if you're not learning to use AI properly today, then you're probably one of those that back in the early part of the last century, where you probably thought that maybe, hey, I should ride a horse and not use a car.
Mhm.
Um, the world has changed. People use cars today. So from an integration perspective, from a human level, capital level, I would want those that are highly motivated, self-driven, high agency people who want to get stuff done and who see the opportunity here for their own careers and their own benefits as well to get something done with AI. This is such a greenfield opportunity. There's so much like opportunity to do stuff as an individual, whether you're young, old, or senior, or doesn't matter. Like there's so much opportunities here. Like go get your hands dirty. Go get something done. Go learn something. Um, and that's the kind of people that maybe perhaps the VPs and the directors today should be looking for. Now, when it comes to integration with their tools, I think that's a solvable engineering problem. We at Inkeep, we're a platform, like I told you earlier, we solve that very well, actually. So the tooling aspect and integration aspect, it's a technical issue that gets solved, and it also gets solved with humans in the loop too, by the way, because we, like I was saying earlier in this discussion, we use today something called the forward deployed engineering model, where if you don't just rely on a single one size fits all SaaS solution anymore. You rely also on bespoke custom solutions on top of your standardized software that you use as well. And this is where the McKinseys of the world gets blended with the tech companies of the world. This is where we're going essentially. So the script that we and you were probably used to back in 2022 has really changed in that sense.
Mm.
So I really encourage people or companies or board directors to think about how can we have the right people who are motivated to do stuff today. It's not a matter of talent anymore. Like intelligence, as we've seen, is a commodity today. Like Opus 4.5, or actually no, no, 4.5, GPT 5.2. Over a dinner last weekend on Friday, I was out. My friend asked me, "What do you think is GPT 5.2's IQ, like the IQ figure?" And I said 147. I just took a random guess. Turns out I was close. It's 152,
Wow.
which is insane.
Wow. Yeah.
Like imagine you could equip every human with multiple high IQ AIs that work for them. Like you need to take advantage of this opportunity because otherwise someone else will. So not to put it that way, but yeah.
Excellent, excellent. That's a great analogy. So, how do you measure? So, I like the message you're saying. Look, this world is changing. There's or competition is big out there. You need to get tools to make your company more efficient, or your hospital, or your university, and what have you. And we all need to learn. And the good news is we're all learning it together, and despite all kind of intersectionalities and what have you. So what are the signals that tell you that value is real and durable with using AI? I mean, specifically agentic AI. How do leaders go about, boards go about thinking this is not a hype, this is happening? How do I measure value? And is it durable or is it going to go away?
I think the bottom line should be thinking about is revenue. Is
Right.
revenue going up? I'm not one of those camps that thinks costs should be going down to increase the margins, and then you have a more profitable company and you live happily ever after. I'm actually more in the camp of the markets are bigger now. There's
Mm.
bigger opportunity. There's more revenue. So the ultimate North Star is revenue. The perhaps the more leading indicators would be perhaps I don't know if you can quantify this, but like getting a sense of sentiment from your own employees as to something along the lines of, "Wow, this took us 3 months. Now it takes us 2 hours." Something like that. In customer support, for example, um, it could be a case of how often are we resolving tier three tickets? How much faster are we closing them? In sales, it could be like how faster is the sales cycle now, or how are we tailoring our message to give so that people can actually understand what we're saying much faster. Um, in um, in other domains, it could be about like writing articles, like for customer support or sorry, documentation teams, for example, like for companies that have to rely on having highly technical documentation about their product. Sometimes it's just a matter of how fast can we get documentation to address frequently asked questions that keep coming up as documentation gaps on our own docs. We do that very well at Inkeep, actually. So we have agents that review all the frequently asked questions on their own, find find cases where those frequently asked questions were not answered, and then go and generate help center articles to then close those answers so that it doesn't have to go to a human, or that the AI doesn't need to say, I don't know anymore. That's an example where things compound really quickly.
That's
Uh,
amazing. I love your focus on growth revenues as opposed to cutting costs. Because cutting costs, the first thing people think is like, oh, we're gonna basically disintermediate people, they're gonna lose their job. You say, look, you're gonna do more and focus on revenues, focus on growth, which is amazing. So let's talk about what are the early warnings. Um, what type of risk can you monitor? How do you know something is not right? Is it quality drift? Is it incident? Is it misuse, especially with, is it complaints? So, how do you go about thinking about risk until it's too late or before it's too late?
how do we think about risk before it's too late? I think I think one way to think about the risk is who is the upstart in our market that could be taking market share? Who is our incumbent competitor that could be using it to their own advantage? That is basic competition right there. But I'd say the other one is perhaps from a human level, human capital risk. If you are a company with highly ambitious people, how do you keep them motivated and wanting to learn new stuff and keeping them aligned? Especially if there's all this like narrative out there that, hey, AI is going to eat the world, it's going to take your job. We're all screwed.
Mm.
Um, so there's the risk of saying, how can we not make sure our people churn and they show up more motivated to get work done? And I think there's an educational piece there that would be very relevant. So helping them be guided, honestly, is perhaps a good one. Um, I honestly think that a lot of those tech companies that laid people off in the last year it's going to come back to bite them because eventually a lot of those engineers are going to go somewhere and
Mm.
they're gonna go work for a competitor, or they're gonna go work for another company that's gonna get more done. And the market caps of those companies, I think, will grow faster than those that are just letting people go in the short term. So it's mostly about like how it's mostly a people game, I would say, is the first and foremost.
Nice. I like that. Again, going back to the growth imperative, going back of using these as a um, generator. So how do you, let's go back to the use case of the application you mentioned or the workflow on documentation. How do you know accuracy? How do you know there is not a drift from, or how do you know if you use that content to create new products or find new opportunities which everybody's busy? How do you know is there is no drift, it's not moving and where you're not creating unnecessary exposure for leadership and for the board?
Yeah, great question. So it depends on how the company wants to implement it, because again, Inkeep is a very malleable, very like you can mold it to the way you want it to. So all that's to say is that all that's to say is that they can design it however way they want. Some prefer having the human in the loop to answer, to like basically review everything, and we generally encourage that. Um, the other way is that you can go quote unquote YOLO mode and fully rely on the AI.
Hmm.
And in that case, this is where the RAG piece on Inkeep today, or that part of Inkeep that comes in very, very valuable. No company that we know does that, but it is doable because our RAG is super reliable. So we haven't seen anyone do it today, mostly because we do think this is an area where humans need to be in the loop to approve everything. Um, again, it goes back to your earlier question. How do we make sure that there's no risk out there? You have to make sure that people are motivated and that the roles that they're exposed to are continuously new and updated and also frequently changes. So this is one way to do it.
I love that, the fact we're talking, some of the most sophisticated tool out there, which is AI, agents who can make decisions and initiate transactions and what have you. And you're saying, hey, humans are important, so let's keep them motivated and engaged, what have you. So on the board side, so what do you think should boards ask every month? I mean, they're not in front, they're not seeing what's going on in the companies, but they do show up And what should they be asking leadership and their VPs and the C-level suite?
Hmm. That is a fantastic question. I would say the key questions they should be answering is for our specific industry, where are we able to realize most value today from AI? And to what extent is it a quick win versus a durable win? And then doubling down on that, let's say the CEO or the leadership says this is more of a quick win, then how do we know a quick win doesn't drift into becoming a liability in the long term because it doesn't integrate with other systems, it doesn't integrate with other tools, and then we have to bring in other tools at the same time to go and compensate for the deficiencies of this quick win that we're about to implement now. So really, it comes down to durability. How do we make sure that this implementation does not pin us to a quick solution and not a durable one? I'm a big fan of quick wins personally, and if they should be used as they should be used as frequently as possible, especially for learning and to enable your employees. But they should be used also with the mindset that not all tools, not all AI tools are equal. Some are less durable than others, and we should be looking to eat fiber and protein and not candy and fat every day. So
That's a good way to put it.
yeah. So I would say in that regard, Inkeep is fiber and protein. Some quick wins out there are more sugar and fat.
So that makes sense. So thinking about board, right? They're meeting every month or every other month or every 3 months, depending on the company. So let's say they engage with AI, with Jenny, in this case, with the Gentic AI, let's say different workflows. Um, so what should they be asking, whether to scale that use case or whether to contain and restrain that use case? How would they go about thinking about it and what should they be asking?
Yeah, great question. I think it comes back down to the human. Where are we going to use humans here to get more to essentially impact our bottom line? Um, I think here is where you definitely need people to review every final step. So I guess the question is, to what extent does this workflow, is it simple enough where there's no human in the loop required, or is it a place where a human in the loop is required? Um, and if a human in the loop is not required, what is the gain? Is it incremental or is it significant? Is it something that now we can actually move faster so we can go and work on the more complex tasks out there? And if it's not, honestly, keep the humans there. Have have them keep their jobs. It's probably even that job is probably even like fulfilling for people. Because if you're not able to essentially move faster and win with agents, you should not be using them. Keep humans there. So really, the question is, what is the metric that we're going to be using to say human versus agent? Who gets who gets more done? And if it's the agent in this case, and it's done and it's able to do it to a high degree of reliability and trust, then where do we use the humans to get work done on the more complex tasks that require more thinking? Um, Anthropic's branding today is all about thinking, and I couldn't agree with them. Like, in this market, like you should be thinking more than you ever did before,
Mhm.
because you have all these different tools that can take care of the mundane tasks for you, so you could do the higher order task, essentially in getting getting stuff done with agents that was more complex. I find myself using the technical side of my brain more than I ever did before today. So is implementing agents here gonna help our employees be more intellectual, be more stimulated, use it to basically work on harder tasks is the question.
Awesome. So thank you for that. I mean, this has been I was when I reached out to you, I knew this would
Mm,
be an amazing show because
mm.
you're very thorough and you're always cutting edge and also thinking about risk, not only, the hype, oh yeah, yeah, let's all grow, let's all do this, and don't think about the humans or society and all the potential side effects. So, is there a message? I mean, as we come to the end of our session, and again, I would love to have you come back again to the show in the future. Maybe I'll be meeting you in person, having a coffee there
For
in
sure.
San Francisco in the Embarcadero, for sure. So, what message you want our audience to think about, to to consider, to meditate on? I mean, because this is deep. This, you're changing models, you're changing what makes company. You're touching a lot of processes and things that made companies successful. Now you're challenging them to rethink it and just to move people to use higher level thinking, as you mentioned. So, what is a simple message you want everybody to remember when they listen to this show?
If they had some time in an afternoon, I would say, what is one thing that I wish I could have built or have done or have designed or have edited? I know you're gonna go edit after this, Freddie, with this, that I could have done with AI.
Mm.
Um, that's what I would say. Like, what is something that you wish you could have done that you probably didn't have time to do, or it was too technical to do, you never learned it in school, and what is something you could do without it today? I wouldn't advise anything medical here, but I would just say, for example, if you always wanted to build software like an application, and you had always had this idea, oh, I would love to make this story for my kids or this application for my cousin or something like that, go do it because you can today. You
Mm.
literally can today. Like the capabilities today are beyond the roof. Let me
Mm.
give you one example. 3 months ago, it would have cost our company $7,000 to create a motion graphics video about our product for a video that would last like 60 seconds.
Mm.
I could do that today with 2 hours on Cloud Code.
Wow.
Yes, that was 3 months ago.
Wow. That's insane.
Yeah. So really think, what is something that I could do that I have not been able to do before? And go do it. See if you can do it with AI.
So I like it, experiential, just whatever you've dreamed. I mean, again, you don't need to be a computer scientist anymore, a data scientist to do all of that. And as leaders, as they get more comfortable with the technology, doing things on their own, they'll be able to move that knowledge and that thinking into enterprise level. Excellent. That's a good way to wrap up the show.
Yeah.
Again, Omar, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your expertise, your way of thinking, and I'm sure leaders and boards will enjoy this context. I encourage everybody to reach out directly to Omar. The website's there. You have his name, so eh, highly encourage that, because if nothing else, you're going to meet somebody, which is amazing. So again, Omar, thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, and looking forward to see how you guys grow. And again, hopefully we'll have you in a few months, as technology keeps changing, have you back in the show to tell us all the amazing things you guys have achieved.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Freddie. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you so much.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of AI Governance with Dr. Freddie Seba. For more insights, be sure to subscribe and share with a friend or colleague on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube Podcasts. To learn more, visit freddieseba.com. Until next time.